Come hither. Have a look at this. Can you believe it? It's like St. Peter's. It looks exactly like St. Peter's. Tourists describing the Rotunda fresco, as quoted in the official capital guidebook, We the People. Welcome to part 2 of chapter 23 from Rulers of Evil, the Dome of the Great Sky. Beneath all this celestial revelry, Brumidi painted more Roman gods mingling with American mortals. Here is Vulcan, the god of fire and craftsmanship, planting his foot on a cannon, while his workers prepare munitions and weapons of death and destruction. And over here Neptune rises with his trident from the sea in a horse-drawn scallop-shell chariot. And where the wise mediatrix communicates with American scientists Benjamin Franklin, Samuel F.B. Morse, inventor of the code, and Robert Fulton, inventor of the steamship. And here the goddess immaculately conceived, the dreadnought Mary. Wearing the pentagrams and eagle headdress of Thomas Crawford's statue atop the dome's exterior, she mobilizes her sword and shield against a pack of fleeing sinners labeled tyranny and kingly power. Also a picture, by the way, of the cover of Rulers of Evil. Jupiter's mascot, the Roman eagle, glides just behind her, clutching a bunch of thunderbolts in his talons. Innocent in her flowing scarlet cape, the goddess is situated exactly beneath the deified George Washington, coming between him and the embattled viewing public gazing up from ground level. It is the graphic realization of Pio Nono's Ubi Primum, which decreed the Virgin Mary was, quote, set up between Christ and his church, always delivering the Christian people from their greatest calamities and from the snares and assaults of all their enemies. Unquote. The eagle gliding behind Mary explains the otherwise inscrutable seal of the United States Justice Department, which contains a wing-spread eagle surrounded by the motto Qui pro domina justitia sequitur, which stands for He who follows the goddess justice. Persephone, or Minerva, the mediatrix, when judging the sinfully dead in Hades, was called Justitia, or Justice. The He of the Justice Department's motto identifies the eagle, symbol of Rome. Rome follows the goddess Justice, that is, the immaculately conceived mother of God, in her judicial capacity. Rainbow sweeps across the lower quadrant of the dome of the sky from Benjamin Franklin to a young boy wearing a Smurf cap and a toga. The boy attends a goddess who reclines on a large horse-drawn reaper. She's Persephone's mother Ceres, who was reconsecrated by early missionary adoption as Anna, mother of the Virgin Mary. The golden boy is officially designated Young America. Although Brumidi has hidden the boy's face from us, he deserves our careful scrutiny for one very important reason. Bearing the name America, he is the only element in the sacred national iconography that defines the character of the American person as perceived by government. Young American Smurf cap is a style of headgear known as the Phrygian cape. Phrygia was a district of the kingdom of Pergamum. We remember Pergamum. It was the middle point in the transfer of Babylonian religion westward to Rome. Phrygia is a Greek word meaning freeman. Our English word free comes from the first syllable, phry, P-H-R-Y. Phrygian caps, Phrygian caps were given to freed Roman slaves to indicate their new liberated status. Roman law regards liberty as a conditional status. The freedom given to you by man can also be taken by man. Only the freedom given by God lasts eternal, I always say. Phrygian caps were given to freed Roman slaves to indicate their new liberated status, but Roman law regards liberty as a conditional status. Once granted by a patron, it could be revoked at any time for any cause. Phrygian cap freedom, then, means liberty. Freed Roman slaves, by the way, were called liberti, to please Caesar. Once again, Phrygian cap freedom, then, means liberty, to please Caesar. We remember from chapter 8 how Ignatius described such freedom in section 353.1 of his spiritual exercises. Quote, "We must put aside all judgment of our own, and keep the mind ever ready and prompt to obey in all things the hierarchical church. Of course, those liberty bold enough to protest that their superiors commanded lost their freedom, no matter how lucid and reasonable their own judgment might have been. They were reverted to slavery. Since the advent of the Febronian state church, the reversion of Protestant liberty, or Protestants, to slavery has been so methodically insidious that it's hardly noticeable. The shackles are psychological, humanely fitted by increasing varieties of spiritual exercise. Like Aeneas, Anchises, Julius Ascanius, and their Trojan followers, most Americans are indeed Phrygian cap freemen, free to sacrifice their individuality to the greater glory of Rome." That means to sacrifice individuality for the collective purpose. As Virgil stated earlier in his work, as you remember from an earlier chapter of this book. I think it was chapter 21 or 22. You get the gist? If not, go back and read that chapter again. Most Americans are indeed Phrygian cap freemen, free to sacrifice their individuality for the greater glory of Rome. What is that else than patriotism where they got you with? You sacrifice your own life for the better of the state, right? But the state is Rome and not what you think it is. So, get out of the deception. Study this. Read the whole book again. The farther I go in this book, the more important seem to me the earlier chapters were. I think I have to read it also, all over again. Like Aeneas, Anchises, Julius Ascanius, and their Trojan followers, most Americans, let's say everyone who is not in a kind of power position, are indeed Phrygian freemen, cap freemen, free only to sacrifice their individuality to the greater glory of Rome. The black obelisk of Calah, which stands in the Babylonian Assyrian wing of the British Museum, records the great accomplishments of the 9th century BC god king Shalmaneser II. In a scene depicting various monarchs paying obeisance to Babylon, we see one monarch kneeling before Shalmaneser, worshipping him. And this is the picture that I put in the video here. Shalmaneser in turn offers a sacrifice to an 8-pointed star set within a bird's wing and tail feathers. Inscriptions identify this kneeling monarch as King Jehu of Israel. Remarkably, according to the New Catholic Encyclopedia, Jehu's likeness here is the only known contemporaneously rendered portrait of a biblical personage. More remarkably, Jehu is wearing the Phrygian cap. Like Bromedes' young America, Jehu's liberty is subject to the mood of his god king. So here you read something that appears in the Bible, and you have a sketch from that. That is not from the Bible, that is from paganism, dealing with Jehu, a king of the Jews at that time, wearing the cap of freedom of the Phrygians, of the Roman freed slaves, a king wearing a slave's cap, bowing down to King Shalmaneser, worshipping him. So the Jews were not only worshipping God, no, they always fell off that belief and worshipped sun worship and other men, like in this sketch, whatever you want to call it, this picture that I put up here of the freedom cap. See for yourself. Falling from the belief of God, the God of the Bible, and you will be punished. Oh, and the Jews got punished in Babylon and beyond for that. The Bible confirms the testimony of the black obelisk. At 2 Kings 10 verse 31 we read, quote, Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of the Lord God of Israel with all his heart. Unquote. Scripture further tells us that Jehu worshipped the golden calf, a sacred Babylonian icon made fashionable in 10th century BC Israel by Jehu's predecessor, Jeroboam. Jeroboam renounced, quote, the law of the Lord God of Israel, unquote, and instituted democracy. Democracy opened the Israelite priesthood, originally appointed by Yahweh exclusively to the family of Levi, to all applicants. Oh, what is this? Isn't that something that you can compare with religious freedom in 1776 in the United States of America? Democracy opened the Israelite priesthood originally appointed by Yahweh exclusively to the family of Levi to all applicants. Before 1776, the political world ruling in the United States of America, which were then 13 colonies, was only open to Protestants and not to Catholics. So, with religious freedom and the founding of the nation-state of 1776, the United States of America, religious freedom opened the door for Catholics, and here in the Bible history we read that the democracy opened the Israelite priesthood originally appointed by Yahweh exclusively to the family of Levi to all applicants. It's another way to sail around the law of God, something Rome is very, very good in. Consequently, Yahweh's priesthood was infiltrated by non-believers and foreign sympathizers. They prepared the way for Jehu to make of himself a Phrygian freeman, obligated to conquer with obedience of the understanding in all things which his superior Shalmaneser II commanded, exactly as the black obelisk explains in lucid visual terms. As a direct result of Jehu's departure from the God of Israel, the Israelite nation began falling apart. It was ultimately destroyed by Caesarian Rome, the legitimate heir to Shalmaneser's Babylonian authority, as it passed down through Pergamum. When was it ultimately destroyed? The Israel of God of the Bible, ultimately destroyed by Caesarian Rome in 70 AD, exactly as Jesus predicted in Matthew 24. And there will be no stone left upon another for the destroying of the temple and the destroying of the city. 70 weeks are determined on thy people and on thy holy city Jerusalem, to make an end of discretion. 70 weeks, 490 years, and then it's over. It's over. You are no longer the exclusive recipients of God's law. but it will be brought to the Gentiles afterwards. It was ultimately destroyed by Caesarian Rome, the legitimate heir to Shalmaneser's Babylonian authority, because Rome is the heir of Babylon. Rome is the modern Babylon. Rome and Babylon are the same. Go to Alexander Hislop's The Two Babylons and you understand why. Well, the author continues, running throughout this cosmic battle of the face is a highly refined Kabbalah involving the concept of golden calf. The word calf in Hebrew, the language of Jehu and Jeroboam, is I can't read that word here in Hebrew written, pronounced eagle. Aha! Running throughout this cosmic battle of the face is a highly refined Kabbalah involving the concept of golden calf. The word calf in Hebrew, the language of Jehu and Jeroboam, is pronounced eagle. Whereas Jehu gave his people Shalmaneser's golden eagle to worship, the church militant has trained the American public to worship Rome's golden eagle, which surmounts every flagpole. Could it be that if we show respect, affection or loyalty toward the national eagle, we create the presumption of worshipping the golden calf, and so alienate ourselves from the God of the Bible, and in the vacuum find ourselves under the rule of the church militant? Well, think about it. Could it really be that we are all duped into doing things in a way that means something totally different to the all-knowing God, and He will pour out His wrath on our ignorance because we just didn't bother to study those facts available? Well, a lot of people say that God will not punish the ignorant, and I'm quite sure that He won't. But on the other hand, this is already more than ignorance, not to read the signs, not here and there to read a book and question everything. The reason why I am here today and sitting this and reading this book is because I question everything. I didn't used to. Oh, I was gullible. I have to admit that. But I'm not so much anymore. And I'm glad I'm not. And now reading this book really opens my eyes. And while we think it is nothing to, show respect, affection or loyalty toward the national eagle, that actually stands for a golden calf, and we all know what happened to the golden calf when Moses came down Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments in his hand, and what happened to the golden calf they built at that time. And we find ourselves under the rule of the church militant, regimini militante ecclesiae, the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. We alienate ourselves from God of the Bible, and in the vacuum that we've alienated ourselves from the God from the Bible of, we find ourselves under the rule of the Jesuits. On the bottom of page 260, the author continues, according to J.C. Johnson, in his biography of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, as General Washington was planning his famous expedition against Cornwallis at Yorktown, quote, the army was destitute, the government treasury was empty, her credit shivering in the wind, unquote. Suddenly, a miracle in the annals of philanthropy occurred. Robert Morris, Superintendent of Finance, the highest officer in the United States under the Articles of Confederation from 1781, personally raised 80 cannon and 100 pieces of field artillery. In addition, he raised, quote, all other necessary supplies not furnished from other sources, unquote, and became personally, quote, responsible to the amount of $1,400,000 upon his own notes, which were promptly paid at maturity. This enabled the American army to give the finishing stroke to the revolution and triumph in victory complete over a proud and merciless foe. Unquote. So goes a historian's version of how Robert Morris saved America. The official version is revealed in Constantino Bromidi's Apotheosis of Washington. Here we see Superintendent Morris gazing up from his account ledger at yet another Roman deity. We recognize the deity from the familiar caduceus in his right hand. From the winged scandal he is thrust to within kissing distance of Morris' lips. From the shadowy bag of gold and tantalizingly dangles in Morris's face. The deity is Mercury, the psychopomp, the trickster, the patron deity of commerce, deceivers, and thieves. Mercury, the brilliant, lovable Pied Piper deity who deceived the souls of sinful humanity into following him exuberantly down into the oblivion of Hades. Just as Sebastiano Ricci's painting subtly established the Mercury as the guiding spirit of modern Roman Catholicism, Bromidi's painting acknowledges the same deity's ascendancy over the fulfillment of the American Revolution. Amazing stuff, these pictures. Well, I'd say amazing stuff, these pictures. So now I have to check something here. Yeah, amazing stuff, these pictures, right? And now I'm going to give you a real good explanation of this. I'm going to open here another website from Hucha.com, the Apotheosis of Washington, and I will give you an explanation that is not in the Book of Rulers of Evil, but that will go very deep into explanation and showing the pictures. So have a look and listen at my explanation I give to you. The Apotheosis of Washington is an image that would seem very strange to most of us, but not one that would have been viewed that way by many of our so-called founding fathers, among whom George Washington was a Mason. He, unlike other slave-owning founding fathers, did free his slaves upon his death. He did what was moral, ethical, and right. Well, yeah, I don't agree with that writing here, but here comes the first picture, the Apotheosis of Washington, as seen looking up from the Capitol Rotunda. The Apotheosis of Washington is the very large fresco painted by Italian artist Constantino Bromidi in 1865 and visible through the oculus of the dome in the rotunda of the United States Capitol building. The fresco is suspended 180 feet above the rotunda floor and covers an area of 4,664 square feet. The figures painted are up to 15 feet tall and are visible from the floor below. The dome was completed in 1863 and Bromidi painted it over the course of 11 months at the end of the Civil War. He was paid $40,000, which is almost $600,000 in 2008 worth of dollars for the fresco, fiat money, yeah. Bromidi had worked for 3 years in the Vatican under Pope Gregory XVI and served several aristocrats as an artist for palaces and villas, including the Prince Torlonia. He immigrated to the United States in 1852 and spent much of his last 25 years of his life working in the capital. In addition to the Apotheosis of Washington, he designed also the Bromidi corridors. The Apotheosis of Washington depicts George Washington ascending to the heavens. Apotheosis stands for the elevation or exaltation of a person to the rank of a god. Deification, right? Washington, the first US President and Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War, is allegorically represented, surrounded by figures from classical mythology. Washington is draped in purple, a royal color, with a rainbow arch at his feet. Flanked by the goddess Victory, draped in green, using a horn, to his left, and the goddess Liberty to his right. Liberty wears a red cap, symbolizing emancipation from a Roman tradition where sons leaving the home would be given a red cap. She holds a fasce in her right hand and an open book in the other. Forming a circle between Liberty and Victoria are 13 maidens, each with a star above their head, a pentagram representing the original 13 colonies. Several of the maidens, or goddesses I call them, have their backs turned to Washington, said to represent the colonies that had seceded from the Union at the time of the painting. Surrounding Washington, the 2 goddesses and the 13 maidens are 6 scenes lining the perimeter, each representing a national concept allegorically. From directly below Washington in the center and moving clockwise, we see war, science, marine, commerce, mechanics, and agriculture. Now I'm going to explain to you the picture of war, as you can see here in the video. Freedom, also known as Columbia, is directly below Washington in the personification of war. The scene depicts a woman fighting for liberty with a raised sword, a cape, and a helmet and a shield, in the colors of the American flag, trampling figures representing tyranny and kingly power. To Freedom's left, assisting her, is a fierce bald eagle. The bald eagle is the national bird of the United States, and as we have learned, also in Hebrew, the golden calf, carrying arrows and a thunderbolt, reminiscent of the arrows carried by the eagle in the Great Seal of the United States. The next picture that we see is called Science. Minerva, the Roman goddess of crafts and wisdom, is portrayed with helmet and a spear pointing to an electrical generator, creating power stored in batteries next to a printing press, representing great American inventions. American scientists and inventors Benjamin Franklin, Samuel F. B. Morse, and Robert Fulton watch. In the left part of the scene, a teacher demonstrates the use of dividers. The next picture we see is called Marine, and this scene shows Neptune, the Roman sea god, with trident and crown of seaweed riding in a shell chariot drawn by seahorses. Venus, the goddess of love born from the sea, is depicted helping to lay the transatlantic telegraph cable which ran from America to the telegraph field in Ireland. In the background is an ironclad warship with smokestacks. Next picture coming up is called Commerce. Mercury, god of commerce, with his winged petastos and sandals and the caduceus, is depicted giving a bag of gold to American Revolutionary War financier Robert Morris. To the left, men move a box on a dolly. On the right, the anchor and sailors lead into Marine. The next picture is called Agriculture. Ceres, the goddess of agriculture, is shown with a wreath of wheat and cornucopia, symbol of plenty, while sitting on a McCormick mechanical reaper. The personification of young America in a liberty cap holds the reins of the horses, while the goddess Flora gathers flowers in the foreground. So now you got an explanation of these pictures, and I'm gonna add another one that was missing here, but I don't remember the name right now. You will see it in the video, but there's no description of that given, so I cannot explain that one. But this was already an extra explanation that was not given in the book Rulers of Evil that I found on another site. But you see now, this is really amazing stuff, these pictures. And what these pictures tell, they all tell you a story. You know? They all tell you a story. Like so many of the testimonies presented in this book, the supremacy of the church militant, the publication of San Juan's strategies in a Western language, the names, the numbers, the dates, the locus and layout of the federal city, the architecture, the statuary, the monuments, the emblems, the frescoes, the ceremonies, they come not from the trickster's victims, but from the trickster himself. Mercury? Satan. It's as if the point of the trick is to warn the victim beforehand in words and pictures that he or she is about to be tricked. A con is much sweeter when the mark actually consents to the con. That way, the trickster's conscience is clear. Constantino Brumidi continued decorating the dome of the great sky well into his 70s. In 1879, at the age of 74, while painting Penn's treaty with the Indians, on the rotunda frieze, he slipped from the scaffold. Dangling 58 feet from the marble floor, he held on until help came. He escaped a deadly fall, but the shock of the experience killed him a few months later. And this continues chapter 23, the dome of the great sky. Hey! Quiet! Come here! Take a look! It looks like St. Peter's. Washington in the lap of Rome. The mirror image of the beast. It's like St. Peter's. Where are we? It's like St. Peter's.